Here we are, Big Tubs, yet another project starting up after some rain all of June and some of July here in 2023. And this may not look like much, but it's a timber that I got from the beach, and it's been drying out, and it's really solid wood. And I'm gonna do something I haven't done. I'm going to attempt to cut slices, chunks here, several of these, and I'm going to see if I can make part of a lumbar spine with different segments, and then possibly even do a section for the sacrum and carve out the different foramen and the spinal canal and show some of the structures. And then it may be a bit too far, but I may even see if I can put some glow-in-the-dark spinal nerve roots in there towards the end. So take one last look at the original, and we'll start with the project. So as you can see, it does have, it's an old timber that I found at the beach. So I guess it's technically driftwood, and but there's nails in it. I'll cut the top chunk off, but I found a bunch more nails down here and in there. This little edge, I want to cut that, see if that will become the sacrum, but I don't know how many nails are inside there, so I have some work to do. And it's 50-50 whether this thing will end up with a Sasquatch or a surfer on it, but we'll just have to see. Well, that Sawzall is pretty amazing. You can see the sacrum, L5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. One you can see is a little bit bigger. I'm planning on making a handle at the top on that one, and Jangle Land here. That's how it works. Oh, it's gonna be nice. Well, summer is finally here, and I've made a couple cutouts, and I'm gonna start with L3 right in the middle, kind of an average Joe for lumbar vertebrae. So the top piece looking down, I'll end up tracing that on, but I want to get the right size. And then from the side, hopefully I'll be able to superimpose that somehow. But see how I placed the transverse process on the wide part. I mean, there's still going to be a lot of carving, which is what I like to do. So we'll see how it goes with the first one. I'm going to probably need to use my big angle grinder on this one. And then, so that would be 3, and then 4, 5, and down to the sacrum. And when all is said and done, this is going to be a lot smaller than it looks because of so much wood going to be coming off here. So, all right, let's do some summer activity. So I'm trying to take a block of wood like that and turn it into a vertebrae. So as you can see, this looks terrible. And I'm using my chisel, I'm using my angle grinder, and nothing is really working. This is really going to be complicated, so we'll see how this goes. It may look nothing like a vertebrae when I'm done. So I'm starting to get a rudimentary looking vertebrae there. You can see the spinous process in the back. I ended up doing a bench vise to a wood clamp, and then with a back brace on the brick. Seems to be working. I decided to come at it from the back and try to carve it out that way and that way. I have a rudimentary vertebral body in the front, and it's going to be bringing the top down and the bottom up is going to be really hard, and I think the facets are going to be ridiculously hard. But at Big Tubs here, we like a challenge, and when one piece isn't working, like my rotary piece off my angle grinder is probably not enough, I ordered a bunch of new things for grinding yesterday on Amazon, and that's how it works here. So I'm getting those tomorrow. So here I've superimposed the top view of the vertebrae, and you can see there's a lot of wood still to carve out. And then I have to somehow get, the side view. I'm going to have to break this down a little bit and the two together make for a nice, interesting 3D picture. As you can see, it's taken shape. Spinous process. That is going to be the vertebral canal and the body. Two transverse processes. See this bottom piece, how it's carved out underneath there, it's smoothed out. The big guns came in today from the mail, and if I could do a commercial for Cutsall, I would. This is a super fast cutting wheel. Tungsten, it's amazing. It went through that piece in about a minute and a half. And I got some other wheels that are from a different brand. I'll get a chance to use those at some point, but that is going to be my go-to. I won't have to do all the hack sawing and everything else I did, I think, with the next vertebrae. So to orient myself now in this next fine-tuning phase, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drill the vertebral canal straight in and then step that up once I get a hole in there with these bigger board drill bits, and then that will keep me oriented to everything around it, because the difficulty is going to be doing the facets back here and here, but I need to have the vertebral canal in the middle stay in the same place, and then I can orient the shape of the vertebral body. So that's going to be the next step, but we're pretty excited here about the new tools. It makes such a difference, like everything. And I'd like to introduce you to my new buddy, helper. His name is Ozzy, which is his nickname because his real name is Osseous, because he's the bone man. And he's wanting to kind of jump in and help out, so we'll see where he can learn some skills and fit in. And through the new angle grinder blades I got and the Dremel, that's a Cutsall, like that big blade I had, I've been able to start to have this get some shape. I got the spinal canal through, pretty nice shape. It's not perfect on the vertebral body, but the hard part now is cutting out these lower facets. They're going to face outward, and so I got to get those to come into the right angle. It's going to be a little bit tricky, but I'm pretty happy with how it's taken shape here. And from that direction, this is the top part, so got some fine tuning to do, but L3 is looking good. Update time. Looks like L3 is coming along pretty good. I have the whole rough cut done, and I'm working with Ozzy, but I realized that his assemblers put his thumb on the wrong side. It's on the inside instead of on the outside along the radius, and so we'll see how he handles the tools. You know, maybe he'll surprise me. But anyway, I'm going to L2 now, and I'm just basically freeforming it with the angle grinder, which I couldn't do on the last one because I hadn't gotten it in yet. And I'm making some drawings like I did, where I put the paper on there and I make a pencil mark, and then I'm just basically different angles, whatever angle I have it on this, I'm just making cuts in. So it's coming along. It's going to be a lot quicker to do it this way than the old way, but we'll see how L2 comes out. What I said was going to be L2, which is this one, is now going to become L3, and this is going to become L2, because it turns out this is a bigger piece. So I think I'm going to drop that one down. And I was trying to work into the facets there a little bit, because I just did upper facets. So this lower one is starting to take shape. Doesn't have quite that little bird takeoff effect yet, but it's coming along. I'm doing it a whole different way because I'm using the power tools more with this one instead of the Dremel. So it's been fun. Well, something very interesting just happened. Here's the front, here's the back spinous process, which is unfinished, and I was going to start carving out the pars interarticularis on this side, but I noticed there's a nail. So I'm going to take that out, and then we're going to see what's underneath that as I'm carving that out. Hopefully it's not so deep it'll affect the structure. So this is what I found when I dremeled out the edges, is that it's rusted. There's no more right there. I don't know if you can tell. But I wanted to spend a little more time, and that's the first time I've ever had to clear a nail out. There will probably be more in this timber in other pieces, but in case it's not, I'm gonna have to record my first nail. So this is coming out, and it doesn't look like it's gonna be too far in. Well, there's my outdoor station, and it's abandoned. As you can see, we've had unseasonable rain and just can't work out there. That piece that's standing there, which is very interesting, I'm thinking about turning that into a cervical spine if the lumbar spine works okay. But now I'm in the shed and I have a whole new setup, and it's working pretty good. I put all my stuff in the wheelbarrow, I can move it around, and as you can see, I now have L2, L3, and L4, and I am going to try to figure out how to do a disc in between. And see, I have a nice setup here. I ended up using the vise this way with the wood holder, and it's great. I can take it in and out and move it around a lot quicker. It's at a higher level, so that's actually worked better. And then I have a little place for the angle grinder and the Dremel, and I'm using these gummy globs, you know, in here. This is something different. If you push it hard enough on this one, these little things pop out through the mesh, and it looks kind of like a herniated disc, but we'll see how we can get all this attached together. So I have a birthday party coming up, and I'm going to ask everybody there if they have any ideas. Here we are back at Big Tubs before the storm, the calm before the storm, and clearly this piece is not going to work as a disc in between. It's not the right consistency, and I want to have it clear. So I'm going to try a ice cube maker that you use for your scotch or your whiskey, but instead of putting water in there and freezing it, we're going to put in this clear Lexel, and then we're going to drop that in with glow-in-the-dark marble, and there that is. Now if this doesn't work, I have a little bundt cake thing right here that we're going to fill up with some more Lexel and see if that works, and fill that in. And I have a helper here. You want to say hi, Dad?
Hi.
Yep. And he's going to be holding things up for me, and we're going to give this a try, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out how to make a clear disc with a glow-in-the-dark nucleus pulposus. All right, here he goes. I'm giving him the honors to put the marble in the middle, so we'll set it there. Now go ahead and take the top lid there and put it on top of that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put more of the clear through the top, which normally would take water, and then you put it in the freezer, but we're going to let it harden, and hopefully the marble will stay right in the middle, and then we'll have ourselves a clear disc. No guarantees with this one, but you can see that I filled that one up the other way, so that knob that sticks out I can drill into the vertebral body to add as a base, and then use these to drill up into the vertebral body above it, because I need something to hold the disc in place. I might end up taking, you know, another one of these and flipping it on top to make two of them together, but first I want to just see if this will dry. The first one we did down here, I'm not even sure if that's going to dry because it's pretty well covered, but I'll give it a couple days and see, and then we'll open it up. I knew this part was going to be hard. Took an ice cube maker and filled up that with some of the gel here that finally hardened. You can see the marble in the middle. It's not perfect, but this is going to try to go between the two vertebrae and make a disc that way. I don't know how that's going to work out, but that's a possibility. It's not quite the right size. This one, the bundt cake mold, I put two tops on it so that I have something to put into the vertebrae above or below. And then this part down here, unfortunately the marble shifted all the way down into that spiky area, which I would have to drill a hole there or in between. Now this one actually fits in the spot a little bit better and is a little bit more like a disc. So I may end up using something like that. And my friend John is also coming up with something else. So eventually we'll figure something out to go in between that's clear and then be able to see that marble moving around in there, hopefully. So going for all the money, gonna make the sacrum, and this is gonna be very tricky, but as you can see, it's kind of a complicated bone compared to the other ones I just did. So woo, here we go. Moving right along on the sacral front as I come up the anterior surface, and a rudimentary disc there that's a little small. Hello there, bubs. And from the side, you can see I still have some carving to do on that. And from the back, I have some ideas about what I'm going to do. And then you can see the facets are more in what we call a coronal plane instead of sagittal, but that's all that worked, and it's variable there anyway. And this is a little too small, but still pretty good. That's got to get fine-tuned. The sacrum is coming alive, but I need a coccyx, and so I have one option here. I was going to carve out a piece like a hollow at the bottom and lay in another piece. And this one is part of a octopus type branch I've had drying out in the garage, and it'd be fun to find a section that would fit as a coccyx. It's the right color, better than this one, but I like sort of the twistiness of that one, so I might shape that and see if I can get that to fit into a groove. I was putting in some arches for the facets in the posterior part of the sacrum, and I was carving out to try and make it look like pillars holding up the facets there, and I realized they look like eyes, and the eyebrows above it, and what do you think? Maybe a bird of some kind? So you know that those spaces are going to be filled with glow-in-the-dark resin soon. Today I'm working on the femur, and there's a lot of wannabes out here. Tried a few samples that I had, and it took me a little while of cutting here and cutting there. Look at that, I even had to pass up my little boot shoe. But I have this amazing Japanese saw for woodworking, and that thing just cuts right through the edges without making any splinters. And so what I came up with was two interesting femurs. I originally was going to put them in the side in the sacroiliac area, but instead I think I'm going to move them down further here. So this piece of wood, you can see, has a rock embedded inside of it, and you can't see on the other side there's another, there it is, there's another rock. That's how I found it. It's just grew around it, and it just kind of has that nice shape. This part needs a little work, but I think we can make that work. Then the other one is not quite as interesting, and it's the best thing I have right now, so I might fine tune that or find a better one. But that's what it's going to look like somewhat from the back. Oh boy, it looks like a little bit of a crab walker right now, but this is it from the front with the tailbone, and that's the string I'm going to be using for nerves. Thought I'd throw that in. You can see the stone bedded on that side. So I'm going to somehow embed those into the front, and probably have some type of ball and socket thing that I'll make up on the fly. And oh, what do you think, Ozzy? Yeah, he's right into this. My L1 block is finally unblocked, because this giant piece that was going to be L1, and the top of the stand, I wasn't sure how to attach it. So this is L2, and I'm going to have L1 on the bottom, and on the top you can see I have the bonus. That is a fish bone that I found. And it looks like a perfect place to put a figurine. I'm not going to say who or what, because that is going to be a surprise. But you know, my motto is a big Sasquatch sitting in the hot tub. This is going to look pretty sweet. As I suspected, this last piece is very complex but fun to figure out. And I have made the altar up here. I've carved that into the very top of the entire piece. And as an osteopathic physician, you do learn some of the quotes from the founder A.T. Still, and he said, be a thinker, not a tinker. So this one presents an extra problem because I have to fit TL1 underneath, and it's going to fuse with this top piece, but I'm having to carve it from below up. So I haven't done any of the vertebrae where I've carved it completely from the bottom up. So we'll put on the thinking cap and see how it goes. So this is what it looks like from below. That's the top part. And I'm going to have to, this is L2 right here, but I'm going to have to carve L1 from the bottom up in reverse. And so it's been interesting so far. We'll see what the final product is. I'll admit this is a bit of a reach, but I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to hang this thing from the top. Went back to physics high school, got some balsa wood and super glue, and built myself, a makeshift rack. And so I'm going to try to turn this into a diaphragm and have that above the top piece, and then somehow semi-connect it so that I can rotate the whole thing 360 and still, be able to attach the feet on the bottom. And I'm going to try to set up what it's going to look like for the feet, but I got a ways to go on this, and hopefully my friend Mark, who's a surgeon, will be able to build me a suitable metal frame with his new metal skills. So we'll find out. Alright, this is kind of random, but I'm going to do one more add-on to the sacrum, and it's going to be the spine of the sacrum right in here and here. And I will color these glow-in-the-dark white, and then the eyes, of course, up here. We're going to have, I think, marbles in there, the ones that glow. And I've kind of got to call on the sacrum the elephant head, because it does look like the trunk and the tip of the trunk. And, just look at the ears on this thing. This one actually has a knot that looks like an ear on this side. So that's the elephant head with some mystery bones that I'm going to put on the spine. Got into a very fun part of the project. I finally got my figurine, which, as you can see, is A.T. Still, the founder of osteopathy. And he said, let's start with the bones. And his philosophy spread to the whole body, and how we have a natural healing mechanism already built in, and the whole body has ability to heal if we can get it into the right equilibrium with manipulative skills. And our profession has changed with modern medicine, and I even added on a couple of ribs here. So what I did is I cut out some grooves, and it's going to look good right in there. I'll be adding a few things to make that look even better, but you can see I had to cut these grooves in. That was a very fun project to get that to match up. And then I also am carving T12 from below, and that's been rather interesting because it's different than doing it the other way. And I had a nail weirdly right in the middle of T12, so I cut that one out. I have my first L5 disc, as you can see on the tailbone. It's clearly too big, but there you can see there's a marble in there. That thing will glow when I put the black light on it. I'm gonna have to figure out how to shape that, but I had to use a bigger holder, silicone for that, where see the Lexel I've been putting in by the tube, basically, because each one of the next discs needs 2 of these flipped on top of each other, so I need 3 more discs, and these might be too small, but I'm gonna have to try to shape them, and we'll see if I can get the marbles in the middle where the nucleus pulposus is, or it's gonna look awfully strange, but here we go. This is Mark, getting it going. It's gonna help the pole stand up. Oh yeah, this is the base going in. Nice. Getting the inside. I'm gonna clear that off to get the pole in there. Ooh, that's been going together. He's putting that whole piece together. Putting the final piece together there. There's the end piece. That's going to go on up through there first time. All right.
Well, that it's easier for me to drill.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you want.
All right.
You want to just drill top to bottom and put the hook through.
What do you think of this whole process there, Dr. Mark?
You never know what you're going to get into with this guy. I don't know how many years I've known him, but he's always throwing some major curveballs, and this is one of them.
Looks pretty good,
I thought
though.
we were drinking today, and
All
this
right.
is what we're doing.
All right. It's getting interesting here at Big Tub. This was going to be my hardest piece. I knew was the attachment piece to the stand, and also whether or not to actually include the diaphragm and the heart piece, which those two will be connected, but I made a carve-in around the back that you can remove that whole piece of the diaphragm and the heart if you want to. So I'm taking that off, and then you can see there's a place where almost the great vessels come through and the esophagus, and that's my carve-in piece there. And then the harder part is figuring out how do I connect this whole thing to the stand. So I am going to drill in these eye bolts right here at an angle on each side, and then we'll hang it from each side, and we'll be able to change the height up and down, and we'll see. I might not make it here on the first go around, but I'm gonna try it. So here's the first attempt, and I drilled in the eye bolts, and as you can see, it's really hanging forward, but I think that's going to be okay, because once I get the rest of the piece down low, that's going to pull it. I think the whole thing is going to end up coming a little bit more forward, and then I'll be able to adjust the heights up there, but that is definitely tipping forward a little more than I thought, so it'll all come together. So I finally got around to finishing the cap piece, or the back piece, at the top, L1 up to T12, and as you can see, there are some deep sort of slash marks in there. I don't know if you can see the grain of the wood underneath it. There, you can kind of see it there. I'm not going to fill these because there were some natural cracks that go down the side, but what this is the beginning of the thoracolumbar fascia right here, and it's the latissimus muscles that are going off to the side with the lower trap going up, two of my favorite muscles, and then even some paraspinal muscles. I don't know how well you can see them down there. I have them circled out. That's a little bit better on that side. And you have the multifidus, longissimus, and iliocostalis right in their appropriate places. And this was inspired by Dr. Willard, who many would consider the greatest anatomist of all time, especially in the osteopathic profession. So that is what the back is going to be, and I got a little lazy. I decided not to carve out underneath. It was just going to be a lot of work, and I'm wanting to build this thing out, see if I can actually get it to stand up. On my first attempt, I'm cutting out these little windows in the plastic pipe, and then I'm putting one screw in right now. I don't know if you can see it in there, and each one of those has a screw to anchor it in, just to get it lined up, and then I'll have to take it out and put in the spinal cord and everything. Well, this is the moment I've been waiting for a couple months here, and as you can see, it is up from the side. It's not perfect, but the biggest problem is this top piece right here doesn't pull the L2 backwards a little bit here, so I don't have a good lordotic curve, but you can see the tailbone is pretty nicely bent backwards. And as we look down, it's that cool looking face. I put some couple marbles in there that are going to glow. As we go up to the thoracolumbar fascia, beginning into the back muscles, and on the side there, going to have to do some work. And then at the bottom, I'm going to have some kind of pole probably going up the middle that will help push that into more lordosis, and that's going to be a turntable bottom down there, so I can move it from side to side. Looking good. Not everything goes as planned here at Big Tubs. So I have it lined up and hanging, and I was picturing, I was coming home from platform tennis a week or two ago, and there was somebody giving away all of their Halloween like $1 million stuff, and so I got this, and I took the legs, and I thought it would be cool to be able to turn the bottom. You can see I put some magnets down that attach here underneath, and I thought I'd be able to turn the spine, and you could see how it twists as it goes up. But the spinal cord piping I have in there, I think it's too thick, and it won't let me really rotate the spine. So it looks kind of like a duck too, I'm not sure, but I think I'm going to get some thinner piping and redo this so that I can twist it and maybe get a little bit more lordosis in the back. But it's kind of funny looking. It's not all peaches and cream here at Big Tubs. I had dropped my L5 a long time ago and broke off the spinous process. So I drilled a couple of pilot holes, and I clipped some nails down, and I'm going to try to glue this together. And I have this, I'm going to attach it that way and then clamp it. But at first I need to shave this down a little bit, so it's going to have an interesting look. But you know what? You have to improvise, so I think it'll turn out okay. As you can see, Ozzy was in the mood to explain this next round, and the hat is a shout out to the fellows this year, because they come to class with the most interesting hats, and it really livens up the class, brings a lot of joy and happiness, and he's kind of into that thing. So the way he's going to explain this is that there are little holes drilled in the second vertebrae, third vertebrae, fourth and fifth in the front, and small holes drilled in the transverse processes in the front and the back. And I'll put one drop of glow-in-the-dark resin in there so that when turning the vertebrae, hopefully you'll be able to notice how things move and make it a little more interesting. So as you can see, the 4 vertebrae are shaped like 4 dice. So what do you say, Ozzy? Let's give it a roll. Well, I moved the operation inside because it was getting cold, and this should be my last video before I start doing the dreaded resin. That's always the hardest part. and it's going to be especially hard this time because I have some cracks that I have to fill with glue to make sure the resin doesn't seep through. As you can see, I put some valves in the heart. Your right atrium is out here somewhere, superior vena cava. There's a little area in the back with kind of a posterior or inferior vena cava. Blood comes through tricuspid valve into the right ventricle and then up into the pulmonary artery, and that's going to go over here, and you can't see it on the top, but back here is the aorta coming out from supposedly the left ventricle down here. Anyway, that was fun to do, and we are on to what I would call the centerpiece of this whole diorama, and that is of the Osteopathic founder, A.T. Still, sitting on his rocking chair. Oh, well, who's that back there? Most of my dioramas have a Sasquatch or a surfer in it, so I decided I'm not going to actually put the Sasquatch in the final version, so I want to get him in there. I was going to actually build a little door in here where he lives, but I thought that would be a little over the top. So the AT Still is going to have something in his hands in the final product, but I couldn't get it for the picture right now. And so what I'm going to do is, a lot of times when I've done a project, I have leftover resin, and in this cup I had a whole bunch of white, and so I took the plastic cup off, and I'm going to make actually a little stand on the inside that's going to go right inside there, and I'm going to take him and put him deeper inside on top of this, which will be, you know, carved out to fit inside there. And this whole thing, the white piece, glows. So I'm going to probably add some glow to the white ribs, and then inside he'll be sitting on sort of a white glowing throne, more or less. Moving on into the resin phase, and need some syringes, lots of brushes, wax paper. I'm going to put a splash on the back of the fishbone and see if it'll help illuminate from behind and also help connect the ribs, the old boar tusk ribs. These will get you know, kind of a layer that hopefully shows maybe a little drip coming off the end. Be a nice touch. Then we get to this is all going to be white, filling in the transverse processes and the vertebral body numbers. I have these set up to just basically put a drop in or two. And then the section that's in the sacrum is going to have these spinous processes, and I have two of them. I wasn't sure how to make it so that they would drip straight down. I'd like to have a cool little ridge coming off of it, because the two tips are what go into the back of the sacrum. So I set this up on my vise. And then lastly, I'll be putting some white into the thoracolumbar fascia area there. So, all right, this part's always a challenge. And with my second round of resin, I put the base of the AT Still fishbone throne on, and then I'll set that on top. And I also had to fill the first lumbar vertebrae with some white resin, and then went full tilt on the heart. So here's the right atrium draining into the right ventricle, up into the pulmonary artery, and I'm going to flip this over in a few minutes and do the superior vena cava up here. Now, I'm colorblind, but from what they tell me, there's a little bit of purple maybe in the deoxygenated blood, and so I went with a glow-in-the-dark powder that said purple red. So hopefully that will match. Okay, and then in the aorta back here, I'll have just a regular red, but I'm all out of that right now. So okay, and then we move over to the most interesting one in the sacrum. You can see, I don't know if I did this on the last one, but I added some white resin shields that go over the coccyx. It was just too boring. I needed something extra, and then I added some happy sacral nerve roots coming through the sacral hiatus. You can see up there, and that comes out in this little area between the coccyx and the sacrum, and I filled in these posterior sacral nerve roots. And let's just take a look at that under the black light. And as you can see, that's going to look pretty sweet. I only have one side. I got to do the other side there. And there's the heart. And when I pull it light away, oh boy, this is going to get good. I have a little bit of resin left to do on the muscles down there, but I'm waiting for my red to come in. And so I'm coming to what likely will be the most complicated part of the project, starting from the top. And I need to connect all of these, and I've done that once already with the tubing, but I, at that time, wasn't ready to put in the discs and do all the other stuff because I had to do all the resin. But I needed to see how that was going to look. So I have some yellowish glow-in-the-dark rope that I want to put down through the middle, and then somehow, you know, have the nerves coming out the sides of the foramen. And if I can, some kind of lumbar plexus, maybe even, I definitely want to do a sacral plexus, fill these holes, and then have some of the end of the rope or the wire nerve coming out and form a sacral plexus of some kind into the sciatic nerve. So it's going to be fun, but might look a little strange when I'm done. So here we go. Okay, I'm at a super exciting place. I'm getting done with the resin, and I don't usually take a video and show the action shot of how I do it, but you know what? Feeling good about it. So I have only 2 rounds of the muscle resin left. You can see what it looks like on the top piece. I have the lower traps going here and the lats coming out, and those filled in nicely. And then these paraspinal muscles down here. I'm not going to say what 3 they are. You got to figure those out on your own. So I'm going to take a toothpick and I'm going to dip the white in here, and I drop a little bit in the first lumbar. This is a marker, and I'll do the transverse processes. I have all the other ones done. And then over here, I'm going to take the 1 mil syringe and I fill in these grooves, and then I'll have to do a whole separate one for this side because of the angle. And then lastly, I'm finishing up the heart. I already took I accidentally put real purple in instead of the red, blue, purple that I've been using, so I had to do that one quickly. And that I filled in right here, and then what I'm going to call the left subclavian artery coming off of the aorta, even though it's like coming off the inferior surface of it, I'm going to put the red in right there. So let's do that right now. So I have the 1 mil syringe set up there. And all you do is just drop it in. Just drop it in. Okay, there we go. Put 1, you don't want to overdo it. Nice and easy. There we go. That's probably not enough. I'll let that 1 more drop it in. Let's go there. Not really coming out very well there. There we go. So you don't want to get the edges smudged. And then let's move over to the toothpick on the white. And these ones, see, they got I don't want to drop any of that onto, let's put that right inside there. Okay. That will be a marker for that. I'll probably put one more in like that. And then to show you how I've been doing the muscle bands. See, I put in some, I had in the red, but I know muscle's not totally red, they tell me. So I put in metallic bronze and some ruby red glitter to make it just a little bit darker. So with this one, we come over here, and this is a little more tricky. This is, you gotta drop it in, but you gotta kind of string it in too, and then you go across. Want that to settle down in there nicely, but not add too much. I might have put in a little too much on that side, so I'm gonna have to get a toothpick and scrape some of that down, but that's how you do it. Now you may be asking yourself, what the heck has gotten into big tubs here? Well, A.T. Still had a lot to say about the artery, that it reigns supreme and nourishes everything to keep the machinery going. But he also had a lot to say about the nerves, and so I'm adding a lumbar and sacral plexus to this project, and this has been an interesting journey. But he said that if the nerve is not well nourished, it will fail to execute its part for want of power, for by it all blood must move. So I like the holistic look of how both of them help each other, and that we need everything working homeostatically in order to gain health. And so I put some time and effort into this. These lines are glow in the dark, and last night I finished the resin on the sacrum, and you can see that the ganglion impars is right here. That's the end of the sympathetic chain, and I have that nestled into a orange-red glow-in-the-dark resin, because the root chakra is red, but the sacral chakra is orange. And so I put some orange-red glitter, and I made that orange-red to represent the first chakra, second chakra, and where we draw our life force energy from. And then I filled in the holes, and this looks really nice under the black light. That's a yellow. These will glow in the dark yellow up into the L5 nerve root, contributing to the sacral plexus. And I don't have it yet, but this is the L4, and I'm going to have branch coming off of that and connecting down to L5 to make the L4 through S3. And then up here you can see the L2, L3, and L4 nerve roots are all going to connect together. Kind of a cool walking stick type figure. And I've already put all of the vertebrae on this, and everything is going to look awesome. Woo! So to take a closer look at the spine so that I don't forget how I did this later, this is the top, and I cut windows out, and that's where I'm going to have to drill wood screws into the vertebral body. And you can see this is the L2. I'm not going to have nerves coming out of L1. I did this in a V shape, upside down V, so that I could run the wire through a hole, and then I take the needle nose pliers and I crimp it around, and I hook it around and crimp the whole thing together. And it makes for a nice movable nerve, because I have to be able to lift these up vertically to slide on the other vertebrae to bring it down. So you can see there, that's the window of L3. And so the area I've crimped together for this side of the nerve sits nice right down into that groove, and then the screw will go through there. And then at the bottom, what I did at the bottom and the top, As you can see, I did it along the side. So you see how there's a separation in the spinal cord there at the bottom, and that's because from the back side, I want to be able to see the split at the end of the spinal cord where the nerve roots start to separate, and then hopefully it'll stay a little more solid together up through the middle part. But we'll see how this all comes together. I hope it holds. Finished phase 1 last night, and as you can see, the PVC spinal cord fits in there nice, and I can lift the entire thing up because it's completely buried in the hard resin. So I'm not using any kind of screw or anything on that one because it wasn't really going to work. So I'm super pleased with that, and it looks awesome when it glows in the dark. So now the actual building portion, and this is the part where this whole thing, this project might fall apart, but this L5, I'm going to track it down through here and lay it on top of this, but I have to put some kind of disc in between. So as you can see, what I've done is I already had made these discs out of Lexel, which is some kind of building clear stuff, and it's not perfect. I had to glue on with the liquid nails. I'm going to use the Fuse It, which is the strongest. And you can see I drilled holes in here to help fill in the silicone stuff. And I was going to add attachments to the discs in the middle, but I ended up filling in these holes. And just, you can see the hole has a bit of a dip. I glued in some clay. So this is going to fit in right here, and you can't tell, but there's actually a glow-in-the-dark marble in the back of this, and I purposely did that. It's the nucleus pulposus, and it's pushed backwards like as in a bulging disc. And the other discs also have marbles that I tried to put in the middle. So I don't know how that's going to turn out, but hopefully you'll be able to see some glow of the nucleus pulposus, once this thing gets going. So I'm going to, push these two together and try to create a lumbar spine, and I'm going to have to build it, section by section from the bottom up. And I don't even know how this is going to go, but we will give it a whirl here at Big Tubs. One thing I've learned doing dioramas is to just stay fluid, keep a positive attitude, and take chances. And I thought I was going to have discs all the way up, but as it turns out, they're super hard to put in, and I've done some trial and error. This is actually my second lumbar one, and I'm just going to do a lumbar disc. And as you can see, this one is more fresh, so it's got a lot of bulging out there. And instead of just putting a disc between each of them, I'm going to take the end plate and groove it in and fill it in with white resin, because otherwise the whole thing is too stiff, and I want it to be able to move. And I'm taking some of my old yellow pieces that I used with the nerves, and I'm going to make that look like a herniated disc coming out, and underneath that is a giant screw like this, because this disc wouldn't stay still. So I ended up drilling a hole all the way through this down into the base of the sacrum. So these two segments are not going to move at all, and then I'll hold it again when I get up to maybe right up to L2, so that the middle part can move and show some biomechanics. But we're gonna, hopefully this will be white and you'll be able to see through into the nucleus pulposus. But that's how I'm gonna do it. Welcome everyone to a new episode of Slow TV, where there's been some movement forward by your host, Big Dubs. And even though it looks like the breakfast part of the spine with eggs sort of on a plate, I did finally get the nucleus pulposus to sit inside the vertebrae, and this could either be the vertebral end plate or down into the disc. And you can see this L5 has a herniation off to the right with an enormous disc there that's hopefully stable at this point. It looks a little funny, but that's the best I could do, which is why I'm doing this. And then this is the bottom of L1. It's upside down. I had to cut through a groove here, and you can see the nucleus pulposus is nice and round. And then if we get over to, as the dots say, L3, that one is kind of just spread out, not great. The little bone spur there. And we have L4, another herniation off to the right. This person has some problems in their spine. And L2, which is typically such a good vertebrae, behaves so well. And as you can see, the nucleus pulposus is perfectly round in the middle. I'm going to flip these over and do the other side, and then I'll be ready to put this all together. Now, laying down new resin is both terrifying and exhilarating at the same time, because as you can see right along here, there's a giant crack down the side, and sometimes these indentations have cracks in them and I have to fill them in with super glue. And so on the be the right side of this T12, when I was filling in the fascia around, the white fascia around, it kept draining out and I couldn't see a hole. I had already super glued this crack that goes up through here, and fortunately none of these, when I was filling in the muscle gaps, spread out. But I noticed later, and this area especially, what kept draining when I kept filling it, look at where it came out. It came out two above. So somehow it went underneath and it came up. So that was my fear with putting resin on this whole area. But it's a small spot, and I think it's going to be okay. So I'm going to show you how fun the exhilarating part is. And then, of course, when you see it under the black light, it's even better. So there again, I like to just drop it in, and it's kind of fun. You just go around in a layer. And just fill it all right in. Whoop, that's going to be a problem. Bubbles, I usually take a little thumbtack, get those out. Most of them pop out on their own, so I'll do a whole nother. You can see how deep that well is. And but I have glue right here on this crack along the side. So first I need to see if it's going to seep in, and then if it's not, I'll fill a little more. So let's take a first look with it put together. There's the top. I had to put a disc in at the top because it was too mushed together, but it looks nice having the annulus and all that smoothed out with some white resin there as we go down. And what I'm doing right now is I'm starting to put the nerves together, and you can see all the way down. I don't have that sacral plexus put together yet, and unfortunately I can't run any extra nerves to the coccyx there and the end of the sympathetic chain, because it's such an important part of our biology. And so what I'm doing is, this is the lumbar plexus. You can see that coming off of L3, sorry, yes, L3, L4. There's actually all the way up to L2, 3, 4 coming down, and I'm taking the wire and I'm punching it through so that it won't retract, and then I'm coiling it around, and that should tighten it enough to get it to hold there. And then I'll run a branch from L4 down to the sacral plexus, and I still have to do the other side. So getting the nerves together. I just got both sides of the lumbar plexus, so even though it doesn't have contributions from L1, it has most of it. But then as I was coming down into the sacrum, I noticed something a little scary, that I have this major fracture line going all the way down, I guess, to here. And I think what happened is when I drilled that giant bolt through L5 to hold the disc in, I didn't drill my pilot hole quite far enough because all of the inside of this disc was wet. And so I was having some struggles, and so I knew there was a risk. But I think some of you aspiring orthopedic surgeons out there, if this gets worse, maybe we can put up some kind of plate, come up with something there. Now I looked in the back over here and I don't see any crack lines back through here. So I think it's gonna stay there, but we'll keep an eye on it. This is the moment I've been waiting for a few months. I have it hanging and I have the nerves put together finally. And I'm really happy with how things turned out. So that's with the flash on. Now let's see what it looks like with the flash off. And that's just on the blue light. Get up and through there. And then with the blue light off, there's the real McCoy. Oh yes, okay. And down at the nerves, you can see how I coiled the wire around that, and it's not exactly that well done, but I injured the back of my hand in a freak accident last week playing platform tennis, which is an outdoor tennis game you play in the winter, and my partner and I both went for the same shot, and his racket smashed my left hand on my racket, and we had to get it x-rayed, and I don't have any power in my left hand, so when I'm trying to crimp the coil of wire there, I have to use my right hand, and it's not up to quite what I would want, but I know it's an excuse, but you know, it's a pretty good excuse. There's the sacral plexus. I love how it turned out so far. I'm at a tricky little final step and getting there. I have some not super strong Velcro. The leg holes up here, I sort of cut out oval shape and super glued that in. And then I took the other half and I put that on the tip, you can see, of the left leg. And then what I'm going to do is I slide that in, and that's going to fit in there like that, and that'll stay. But on this side, as you can see, I had to put some Sculpey up in there and plug a hole because I didn't have it even, and the crack that formed went all the way in there, so it's probably good to have a little glue up in there. And then I'll take this other piece and put it in, and then I'll have both legs, and hopefully they can hang vertically without falling out, and I call them the chicken legs. Here we are, just torching away, getting that nerve root to come together.
It doesn't, see, it's melting.
Oh. Well, the blowtorch didn't work too good to get the tip of the copper wire to melt together, and unfortunately, so we ended up putting glue on there. Unfortunately, it fried the tip of the nerve here, so I did an add-on, and there's going to be a little gap, but hopefully it's not too noticeable under the black light. I just wanted that nerve to extend out further in the sciatic area, so we'll see how that does. This is it, the final two videos. I have my favorite pointy-eared pug at the top, and if you can't see it, this is the mouth, little tongue there. couple paws up front. There's the left eye and the ears. The right eye is kind of mangled right there. And he is sitting on top. Circulatory, respiratory center, down to the area you haven't seen yet. As we know, we got the wild boar tusks as the 12th ribs, and the fishbone of all fish bones found at one of the Kennebunk beaches. And I've finally got our favorite osteopath in there holding a mouse femur. I don't know if you can see the femur. There's a little ball on the end of it. And he's sitting at an angle because I put him in at an angle, sort of accidentally, but it's better because you can see his feet better. And from the side, when he was straight on, he looked a little bit like he was plugged into the Borg collective. So I think it's better that he doesn't go straight out, and you couldn't see his feet that way, and just looks kind of cool at an angle. And this way he's got a little bit of a short right leg. So I thought that was sort of cool. And there he is on his throne. As we go down to the first disc between L1 and L2, there is a marble in there when you glow this thing up, and go down through the lumbar plexus into that 5th disc and all the way down into the ugliest feet you've ever seen, but they're staying together now. So let's check out the backside. Starting from the bottom up, this is what I have the project named after. This is my favorite piece of the whole diorama, what I'm calling the elephant head. And the piece is called Ellis, which is LS, stands for lumbar spine, but it also is the L in elephant and the S in sacrum, so I'm calling it the elephant sacrum. I just love how the ear came out as one of the giant SI joints. This sacral, this median bony spur here, I'm calling the mommy dolphin and the baby dolphin, sort of diving down there. And then of course the eyes and the nose and the trunk going up all the way to the top. And we've already discussed the muscles there. It's kind of cool looking at night. And you get up into the backside of the heart, and you have the superior vena cava there on the right, and the aorta coming out on the left, and that little one coming out on the bottom I'm calling the subclavian, even though it is the wrong direction. It should be going up, subclavian artery. And that is about the whole thing. Oh, in the front, the bottom piece right there, that is the right ventricle going up into the pulmonary artery opening. So that would make the left ventricle way over here. All right, let's see what this thing looks like completely in the dark. Here we are up at the heart on top of the AT still sitting zone inside the fishbone. That looks pretty cool. I didn't add any extra paint to him. I just didn't want to wreck anything on there, and you can still see he lights up pretty well. And behind him is an area that I needed for an attachment to the back of his head, but I think it's better that his chair is a little sideways, because otherwise it looks like he's right out of the Borg in Star Trek. So I think that turned out okay. Okay, and then you can see the guide lights as we go down with the discs. And now we're getting into the lumbar plexus at L3. And that disc you can see is that little kind of herniation off to the right on the body. As we go down to the sacral plexus and the feet, you can see the ganglion impars at the right there at the coccyx, the anterior part of the coccyx. That lights up a little bit better. And down into the feet. And away we go. This is another angle from the front, and just saying, kind of looks like a person. I don't really have a sense of how to name that. I think you can come up with your own ideas, but I just thought that looked sort of cool. And comes out only at the glow in the dark, so I like that aspect as well. Looking at it from the back, it's not as bright, so I got to do it this way, and you can see our little pointy-eared pug. His right ear is the superior vena cava, left ear is the aorta, down into the thoracolumbar fascia, trapezius, lower trapezius, lats, paraspinals, spinal cord. You have some of these white dots that are sort of to help track everything. And then as we get down into my favorite piece, into the sacrum, elephant head, aka that one, I don't know if I mentioned that the two bones in the middle of his nose there that I call dolphins are actually coyote teeth. But I like this because it shows nicely how the gluteus maximus muscle comes into the coccyx at the bottom there and the lower part of the sacrum, and it just has a nice symmetry to it. So that is the whole thing, and I'll try some movement a little bit. It doesn't have great mechanics, but it works okay when you look at it from the front. So before I do the end here for the last video, I just wanted to say that this was an amazing project to do, and you know, while I'm working on my project, I have people in mind that I'm doing it for, and I've just enjoyed so much working with the medical students at UNE, and I want to dedicate this piece to the students because they just put in so much work, their heart and soul, and it's quite a chore to get through medical school, and it has its rewards. But there are times where you wonder why you're doing it. And this also, you know, I want to dedicate it to the teachers and the faculty. They work tirelessly, and they make a lot of good come out of, you know, a tough situation. Being an adjunct faculty, I don't have to, you know, absorb a lot of what they do, and I really appreciate people like Teresa and Danielle and all the faculty in the department, of the OMM department, who I've interacted with, that just do a fantastic job. So just like to say, keep up the good work, and I'm sure AT still would be very proud of all of you. I wanted to give a last shout out to my friends who helped me put this together. Usually I go solo on these, but this was a complicated project, and Mark built this stand for me, and that circular piece apparently is a gear for some type of grain elevator, but that was all we could find for a base, and I think it just looks awesome coming up and around. And I think I'm going to leave the end open in there. I tried to put a patch of resin there, it didn't work, so for now I'm going to leave that open. And then the spinal cord was actually thought up by my friend Jeff, who I was a fellow with 30 years ago, and he had the idea to use that firm clear plastic, and his buddy Chris also helped me, I think, figure out the Lexol with the discs and just all kinds of help. So And here you can see Ozzy woke up from deep nap. He just couldn't believe the whole thing was done. So we're just amazed if anybody actually got through this whole video in one piece, right? That's a long, slow video, but it was a blast doing it, and we hope you enjoyed it. So thanks. We'll see you around.